Hey, it is Wednesday, October 9th, New Comic Book Day, and this is John Marcotte, the Heroic Dad. I'm going to go over my picks for the week here at Empire's Comics Vault. All right, the first book I think you should be looking at this week is Batman, The Batman's Grave. There's one particular reason I'm recommending this. Number one, it's a number one issue, so you're jumping in. It's a limited series. You're not going to have to have read a whole bunch of other stuff in order to understand what's going on. But it's written by Warren Ellis with art by Brian Hitch. Warren Ellis is just absolutely one of the best comic book writers in the industry today. He always has a really interesting take. He did some great work reinventing Moon Knight, who is Marvel's Batman, basically, a little bit ago. And, I don't know a ton about this. I read the story, which is, the plot line that they give you, which says something about how Batman has to get inside the head of a dead man without ending up in a grave next to his parents. And I can't even pretend to understand what it's about, but I will 100% bet that because it is written by Warren Ellis and because it is drawn by Brian Hitch, that this is a fantastic book. And again, it's a number one, so you can jump in. It's not going to expect you to know all sorts of things in a backstory. You're not coming in the middle of a story, and it's just got super pretty art because Brian Hitch is good stuff. It's dark and moody the way we expect Batman to be, and oh look, there's a corpse, and it's a story probably released to coincide with Halloween, just based on the whole Batman's grave idea. I would definitely recommend picking this one up. My second pick is one of these DC dollar comics that I've been recommending, and in this case, it is Watchmen #1. Watchmen is probably the most celebrated and famous graphic novel of all time. It was originally a 12-issue limited series that DC put out, and they're giving you issue #1 for just $1. If you've always wondered what the Watchmen was about and didn't know where to start, you could get a taste of it for just $1, and if you like it, and you should, again, you can run out and pick up the graphic novel. But this is like it gives you a little taste, so you don't feel like you have to commit to that $20 purchase. You can just try it out for $1, see if you like where they're going. It is some of the most innovative storytelling ever done in comics. They do so much with the medium that really pushing it to its fullest. There are things that happen in the Watchmen comic that are just impossible to do in any other medium. They do mixed medium stuff. As you get farther into the comic, they'll do things like there'll be a couple pages that are chapters from one of the superheroes' biographies in that in-world universe. So you'll have a couple pages of text. There's things where a kid is reading a different comic book inside the comic book, and we get some pages of that. It's all stuff that just doesn't translate really well to other medium, like television, like they're doing on HBO, or the movie. Not that I'm saying those are bad. It's just that The Watchmen, as a comic, is written for the medium, and you really should enjoy it in its original format, which is comic books. This is a good place to start. My third pick is another #1. It's Doctor Doom. Marvel is giving everyone's favorite bad guy his own comic book. So this is going to be, the story of Doctor Doom told from Doctor Doom's perspective. Like most good villains, Doctor Doom has his motivations. He just thinks the world would be a lot better off if he was allowed to rule it, and we would all just get out of the way. So we're getting a book told from his perspective, which if he's not exactly the hero, he's at least the protagonist. I just thought this was a good time to get into Doctor Doom because Marvel, the movie studio, got the rights to Doctor Doom back when they got the Fantastic Four rights from who did they get it back from? 20th Century Fox. So I think there's a pretty decent chance that sometime in the near future, Doctor Doom is going to show up in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, in the movies, as the next big bad. I don't think that's a bad bet. And this would be a great chance for you to jump on board, find out a little bit about Doctor Doom, what motivates him, what he's like, and and you're getting in on the ground floor. It's a #1 issue. It's the first time, I believe, that Doctor Doom's ever headlined his own book. So yeah, that's another #1, another good jumping on place this week if you want to start picking something up. Speaking of that, we have The Secret Origin of White Fox. White Fox is another #1 from Marvel. She is a female Asian superhero. I believe she is Korean, South Korean. And she has shown up in a few superhero teams recently. She was in she fought with the Avengers. She was in Jimmy Woo's Agents of Atlas team, which is a great book. You should go find that and pick that up. And she also showed up in Domino and the Hot Shots, written by Gail Simone, which, if it's written by Gail Simone, I will always recommend it. But she is she's basically South Korea's version of like the Black Widow or something like that. She's their top secret agent spy. She's also the last in a mystical line of shapeshifters. But this is an origin story, so we're going all the way back to high school to show how she became who she became. And there's her mystic spirit wolf thing. So it's got a little bit of a anime style flavor to it. It's not like hyper detailed Jack Kirby style art. There's some really good, I think, action shots here. So the poses and stuff are great. But simple, clean lines, a little bit more cartoony than you would find in a more serious comic book. This just looks like a heck of a lot of fun to me. I'm always willing to give a new superhero a shot. And since I don't know a ton about White Fox other than the few guest appearances I've read, I'm interested in her origins, and this would be the way to find it. And you got to admit, that is a cool cover. I mean, who wouldn't want that? All right. And my last pick for adults this Wednesday is The Secrets of Sinister House #1 by DC. This is one of their horror offerings. Have this very cool John Romita Jr. Red Rain Batman cover. Red Rain was a story where Batman was bitten by, I believe, Dracula. You know what happens. And he turned into while fighting Dracula, he ended up turning into a vampire, but he tried to fight his evil impulses and became a vampire for good. I can't remember. I think that didn't hold forever, and at some point, Batman needed to be put down. But this is an anthology title. It has 8 different stories in this one 80-page giant book. So each one's about 20 pages. You got Batman, you got Justice League Dark, The Atom, House of the Dead, and then my favorites, Harley Quinn and Zatanna in there by Paul Dini, the guy who was responsible for creating Harley Quinn. So this is it's an anthology horror book. Not all the horror is super serious. Some of it's actually just a little bit silly. But I love these type of books that give you an overview. I'm always big on the sampler platter, one that gives you a look at several different superheroes, several different ongoing titles. Secrets of Sinister House #1 is definitely like that. It's a book you can pick up. You get a lot of story for one price, and you get a look at multiple different superheroes and universes, and I think this is worth picking up to take a read. And for kids, I got 3 graphic novels that came out this week. The first is Mooncakes. Mooncakes is a book. It's about a witch who has a best friend who's a wolf boy. It's in a kind of high fantasy type world. And they end up having to team up because someone's trying to corrupt and use wolf magic, werewolf magic for evil. And so they have to battle an ancient evil together. I don't know a tremendous amount about the book because this is a new one, but the art style is just charming as all get out. It has a plug by Tilly Walden, who wrote Spinning and On a Sunbeam. That speaks volumes to me. She's one of my favorites. And it just looked charming. We're guessing this is aimed at like your tween teen age group. It's a little, probably skews a little old for the younger kids, but it is a wonderful looking little graphic novel. I really, especially for kids, love the graphic novel format because they get the entire story. And this is pretty sizably thick. This is going to last them a while. You get the full story. You get a whole bunch of reading in place. And again, we're firm believers that comics help spark love of reading. So, Mooncakes. And then this has always been one of my favorite titles, Spider-Man Loves Mary Jane. It's a series that Marvel comes out with every now and then in individual comics or in trade paperbacks. And it is the Spider-Man and Mary Jane teenage love story told from the point of view of Mary Jane. This has some beautiful anime-style art by Miyazawa. So you get some of that in there. And this is a relationship story, but told, again, from the point of view of Mary Jane, not told from the point of view of Peter. It is perfect for, again, that kind of tween girl age group. And it's a universe they're familiar with, but it's, probably skewed a little bit more towards the kinds of things that girls are interested in. And also, from the girl's point of view, just switching the protagonist is in itself significant. Puts a whole different spin on the story when you're seeing it through Mary Jane's eyes rather than through Peter's. I've always been a fan of this book. It's charming, and I always have loved the art, and I believe this one's by Sean McKeever is writing it. So yeah, Spider-Man Loves Mary Jane. This one is The Unexpected Thing. They don't really title them with numbers 1, 2, 3. It tells a complete story. Again, it's a fairly thick graphic novel. It's going to take somebody a little while to read, and is a good way to get your kid reading. And then last but not least, this is one of my favorites, Cheshire Crossing. It's this story of Dorothy from Oz, Alice from Alice in Wonderland, and Wendy from Peter Pan. It's this cross-universe magical romp where Captain Hook from Peter Pan meets up with the Wicked Witch from Oz, and they team up, and they're going across the multiverse, this magical multiverse, and wrecking all sorts of havoc. So the three female protagonists from the three of the classic fantasy stories all team up together to defeat them. They chase them around the multiverse and are trying to undo the damage that these three are doing. What I love about it is that it's written by Andy Weir, the guy that wrote The Martian. You remember that with what's his face? Good Will Hunting there. Who's Good Will Hunting, Ben?
Damon.
Yeah, Matt Damon. Matt Damon and his poop potatoes. Yeah, Andy Weir wrote this, a guy who is really known for super hard technical science fiction. And he wrote this charming little book about teenage and female protagonists. It's set in a fantasy world. It is about as far from The Martian as you could possibly get. It looks absolutely wonderful. I saw it on there. I couldn't believe what I was picking up. The art is by Sarah Anderson. It's very, very pretty and very beautiful. I love when comic books push the boundaries of comic book art. I'm a huge Jack Kirby fan, but anytime somebody puts something out there that is not obviously inspired and coming from that Jack Kirby style, I love it, because we're expanding the vocabulary of comic books. And so these last three books have definitely done that. They're coming from a different place. They're inspired by Japanese anime and by fan art even on that women and girls started contributing to the comics community. And I definitely think this is a good pickup. It has a nice blurb on the back by Ryan North from Squirrel Girl and Margaret Stoll from Black Widow. And she also wrote Captain Marvel for a little bit. So yeah, this is one that I think is a slightly literate. It requires something from the reader. I think you do need to know who these three characters are, but what girl doesn't know who Dorothy, Alice, and Wendy are? Everybody knows who those three are. And it's a fun kind of piece of metafiction. What if these three worlds collided and the three heroines teamed up to take down a combined force of the villains from those pieces? All right, those are my picks for this Wednesday. Thank you very much for listening, and I will be back next week.